Jerome Powell flipped the markets today when he said that you need to expect more interest rates and potentially even more aggressive interest rates in their battle to bring down inflation. Today, Federal Reserve Bank Jerome Powell, chairman, gave a talk in front of Congress in his semi-annual monetary conference. And in this conference to Congress, Jerome Powell essentially laid out what's going on with inflation, the economy, money, and everybody was questioning him about why inflation is so high, why are there so many inflationary pressures for middle-class Americans, and what's going to be done. And then you also have people saying, why are we raising interest rates so aggressively? It's making buying a home so expensive, and all of that. And what Jerome Powell essentially said in his remarks is, number one, inflation is higher than what we expected. It's not coming down as fast as we would like, and because of that, we, the Federal Reserve Bank, are going to have to be more aggressive to bring down inflation, and we might have to raise interest rates higher than what we originally expected. What he said was, quote, based on the economic data, the ultimate level of interest rates is likely going to be higher than previously anticipated. Essentially, that how high interest rates have to go looks like it's going to be higher than what the Federal Reserve Bank was originally predicting. Then he said in regards to how aggressively the Federal Reserve Bank will raise interest rates, Jerome Powell said that we would be prepared to increase the pace of rate hikes if it is necessary, aka that Jerome Powell might be willing to raise interest rates not by 0.25%, but by 0.5%. Now, if you remember last year, the Federal Reserve Bank was raising interest rates by 0.75%, then they brought it down to 0.5%. Then in the end of the year, this year actually, in the beginning part of this year, it was 0.25%. Now what Jerome Powell is hinting at is that they might have to reverse course by potentially raising interest rates more aggressively, meaning not by 0.25%, but by potentially 0.5%. What are they going to look at to decide how aggressively they're going to raise interest rates? Well, they're going to look at economic data and inflation data. By the way, I don't have my tripod today. I took it home for some other work that I was doing, but forgot to bring it back. On March 14th, we get the next inflation report. And then on March 22nd, we have the next Federal Reserve Bank decision on interest rate hikes. So those are two dates that you want to keep in mind, because on the 14th, when we get the new CPI report, the new inflation report, and the new PCE report, it's going to tell us where inflation is going. And if it comes in hotter than expected again, because in the last inflation report that we got in February, it came in significantly hotter than expected, which is why now people are getting worried about inflation and interest rates, because kind of like what we've been talking about, it's going to take more work to bring inflation down. And if this report that we get on March 14th is again hotter than expected, well then on March 22nd, that could give the Federal Reserve Bank more fuel to do a more aggressive than expected interest rate hike, which could then shock the markets. Now, we've been covering all of this in Market Briefs. Market Briefs is my free financial newsletter. If you haven't joined Market Briefs yet, it's a completely free way for you to stay up to date on what's happening with things like the financial news, the stock market, the housing market, inflation, the economy, and the global economy. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and I promise you, you're going to enjoy reading Market Briefs. And if you don't, well, you can unsubscribe anytime. It's completely free. So if you want to join Market Briefs, I got the link to how you can join down in the description below. But this is where now understanding, what does this mean? Well, Jerome Powell hinted, or he more explicitly said than hinted, that there are two things that he's working on. One is price stability, and two is maximum employment. This is a two-pronged approach that the Federal Reserve Bank here in the United States has. This is different than, say, in the UK, where you have the Central Bank of England, where they only have a one-factor approach, because over there, they're only working on price stability. They're not worried about maximum employment, or at least they don't explicitly say so. They do care about it, they just don't explicitly say so. Here, what Jerome Powell is saying is that the unemployment levels are too high, meaning we have too many people with jobs. Kind of a strange thing to say, but they don't say it that way because that wouldn't be politically correct. In fact, what they do say is that our labor market is too strong, and because of that, it's causing a lot of price issues when it comes to wages. So when you say the labor market is too strong and we want to loosen the labor market, that essentially means that we want to create more layoffs. How do you do that? Well, you increase interest rates, which makes borrowing money more expensive. It makes operating and doing business more expensive. when your costs at a business go up, it then forces some businesses to cut costs. How do you cut costs? You do layoffs. And so this is why you saw the stock market fall by around 500 or so points today as soon as Jerome Powell started talking, because he just laid the hammer and said, hey, look, we're going to be raising interest rates more aggressively. We thought that we would stop raising interest rates this year. We thought we'd stop pretty soon, but it looks like we're going to have to not only raise interest rates longer, but we might have to raise interest rates even more aggressively. And so now when you say that, well, that makes borrowing money more expensive. So now that makes your credit card debt more expensive. That makes getting a mortgage more expensive. That makes getting a car payment more expensive. All these things, the consumer debts become more expensive, but so do your business debts. If you have a business and you have to borrow money to operate the business, well, that debt to finance your operations becomes more expensive. Our national debt becomes more expensive because now the interest rate that the government has to pay on our $32 almost trillion worth of national debt goes higher. So the cost of doing business goes higher. And this is where now understanding that there's going to be consequences because of this. We haven't seen the full effect of this. People still have the ability to spend. And I know this is a tough thing to really understand and grasp, because right now what we're seeing is people are digging into their savings to spend money. People are digging deep into credit card debt to spend money, but they still have the ability to spend. Why are they spending more? Because the prices of everything is higher. And so when you look at the consumer spending reports and people talk about the state of the economy, they say, wow, our economy is strong. Why does our economy look strong? Because consumers are spending money. Why are they spending money? Because, well, the price of everything is so high. So if you look at that, it looks okay. But what you don't see in that data is that, oh no, consumers are spending because they're digging into their savings. And they're spending because they're going deeper into credit card debt, which means eventually, if things keep continuing on this path, you're going to hit a breaking point where consumers can't keep spending. Why can't they keep spending? Because eventually they run out of savings or they max out their credit cards. If and when that happens, now the spending will no longer be able to continue, and that's when you start to see more economic pain. So it's this balance that we've been talking about for over a year now of inflation versus interest rates. And what is going to break first? Is it going to be inflation that breaks first, or is it going to be the economy that breaks first? Right now, both are still strong. If you look at it in a snapshot, inflation is still very strong and the economy still looks okay because you have people who have jobs. Now, of course, our economy has a lot of big red flags out there, but this is understanding that the issues that are going on in our economy and inflation are not over. They're not even close to being over. This is not a 2023 thing. We're going to continue to see this next year and probably the year after that as well. And understanding that as we continue to raise interest rates, inflation will slowly come down, but the economy will also come down. Which one will come down faster? Well, this is where the Fed is hoping that inflation will come down faster than the economy. The problem is we keep raising interest rates, which slows down the economy, but it's not bringing inflation down fast enough. And the longer inflation stays high, the more pain that puts on the economy as well, because high inflation makes it more expensive for people to really do anything. And what we're seeing is inflation is going up faster than wages, meaning people no longer have the ability, or they don't have the ability to spend as much now as they could a year ago because the cost of things have risen faster than wages. And people don't want to reduce their lifestyles. So instead of reducing lifestyles, they're changing how they spend. They're using their savings. They're using their credit card debt. There was actually a report that talked about how more and more Americans are actually digging into their 401ks. They're selling up a piece of their 401ks to spend money today. So a lot of things you want to pay attention to. Obviously, I'll be keeping you posted here. I apologize, I haven't made a lot of videos on this Clips channel because I've been traveling a lot. I'm actually traveling again tomorrow, but I'll try to keep you all posted with the big things that are happening. So make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, but definitely be sure to join Market Briefs because my team is keeping you updated when things are happening, and it's out 6 days a week. So definitely join Market Briefs if you haven't already.